So welcome to this video. My name is Alex. I'm just going on my evening walk here in the mountains, and I wanted to share with you what I believe is the very most important thing that every human being on this planet needs to understand. And that is how to be completely protected from evil, from the forces of darkness. You could also call it fear. Now, due primarily to the media and the forces which are using the media, and when I say media, I mean television, film, social media, books, magazines, video games, the music industry, every aspect of the media. Every aspect of the media is being used to present us with dark images, scenarios that make the future look really ominous and bleak, and to essentially program our mind for a dystopian worldview, which is not true, by the way. You know, we're not destined for a dystopia. The only way a dystopia can occur is if we all allow our minds to be pulled into this state of hopelessness and pessimism. A dystopia relies on that. A dystopia cannot occur if the population are positive and full of hope. You can't have a dystopia without hopelessness and pessimism and this kind of negative mindset which sees the darkness instead of seeing the light. So hopelessness is key to a dystopia functioning. And so a dystopia is not just our destiny. A dystopia is a choice. Dystopia is a choice, and you have to make your choice. Do you want to live in a dystopia? Which means aligning your thoughts with all the thoughts, all the ideas, all the scenarios, all the visions which are being pumped into our minds via the media, consciously, intentionally. So either you align your thoughts with those visions in the media, the visions of darkness, the visions of dystopia, the visions of suffering and misery and hopelessness, or you choose something else. You protect your mind from those ideas, those visions, from negativity, essentially, from all negativity. And so to come back to my original point, which is how can we become completely protected from evil? How can we be completely protected from darkness? We have to put our mind on the source of the light, because spiritual light is a reality. It's true. It's something you can feel in your being, you can perceive it in your mind. And our responsibility is where we put our attention. Where are you putting your mind? What thoughts are you giving your attention to in your mind? Because the media has been flooding our minds for a long, long time, so that there's just this jumble of negative thoughts. This labyrinth has been built in our minds, this dystopian labyrinth, where we see only darkness ahead, where we expect the worst, where we just feel a sense of dread about what's coming in the future. That is the dystopian mindset, which is being and has been implanted by the media as a whole, and I mean as a whole. Now, that's actually good news, because if we consider that the media is needed to do that, which means that if you take out the media, if you remove that part of the jigsaw puzzle, then that dystopian mindset isn't there. So the media is needed. The media is needed to build that mental perspective, that psychological perspective on the world. It's needed, it's required. And so that's the part the media is playing, is to encourage us to think in certain ways, dystopian ways, hopeless ways, pessimistic ways, and to really fear the future. And so, either we allow our attention to be taken by those thoughts, either we allow our attention to be placed on those thoughts and to consider all these dystopian themes, consider all the bleak things that we think might happen, consider the future in this very negative and hopeless, pessimistic way, or we put our mind on the light, which is God. It's just another word, God. But the source of light, because light is true. And you could say that spiritual darkness is just the experience of being separate from the light. Spiritual darkness is like standing in the shadows on a sunny day, or going to sit inside a cave. So imagine the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day, the sky is blue, the birds are singing, yet you choose to go and crawl into this small dark cave which is cold and damp and you can't hear the birds singing. Well, that's what we do every time we give our attention to a negative thought, a fearful thought, a hopeless thought, even an angry thought. We are turning our back on the light, on the truth, and going into these caves which make us feel like darkness is a reality. Darkness is not a reality. For us to experience spiritual darkness, then we have to be convinced of its reality. We have to be persuaded that it is true. And that's what the voice in our head does to us all day long. It's a bit like the snake in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. All it's doing is whispering to us all the time, trying to convince us to remain afraid, to convince us to believe that we are weak, to convince us that the future is dark and hopeless, to convince us that we can't overcome the challenges ahead of us. And so essentially this voice's main intention is to make us weak and powerless. Then it can essentially feed off us, and it can pounce upon us, and it can grow stronger from the energy which we are giving away. So it's really, really important, first of all, to be strong, to keep your body strong, not allow yourself, if you notice yourself feeling weak and feeling hopeless and feeling despondent and lethargic, you've got to move your body, you've got to strengthen your body. People talk about psychosomatic connection between your body and your mind. It works both ways. Healthy thoughts will lead to a healthy body, but a healthy body will lead to healthy thoughts. And healthy thoughts are thoughts that come from the light, thoughts that you are protected, thoughts that you are provided for, thoughts that no harm can come to you, thoughts that everything is working in your favor, by which I mean God, the universe. Divine love is with you and working for you, wanting you to open your heart to that force so that your heart can be healed. So once we understand that evil's main job is to convince us to turn away from the light, to convince us to believe its lies about fear, about the future, about reasons to be hopeless, about our own weaknesses and failings and our own how we don't deserve love. Its job is to convince us of those things so that we stop listening to the truth. And the truth is the divine truth. And so that's why this voice in our mind speaks so loudly, because it thinks it can drown out the voice of love which speaks in your heart. There's two things we need to do. Number one, we need to stop listening to and believing that voice. It is lying. It just wants us to believe in it. Instead of us believing in the light, it wants us to believe in the darkness. So when you notice the thoughts in your mind wanting you to see things in a bleak way, wanting you to be afraid for the future, then you can know that you've been listening to the wrong voice. Any sense of negativity in your body, in your mind, in your emotions, is a result of you listening to the wrong voice. And essentially giving your attention to this constant news broadcast in your mind, which is telling you how bad things are going to be, telling you how you can't succeed, telling you how you cannot overcome the struggles and challenges. They're all lies. I promise you, they're lies. So, as I said, there are two things we need to do. Number one, stop giving our attention to the lies. Stop listening to them and stop believing them. So we need to become aware of when that voice has gotten our attention, when that voice has convinced us of something negative, something that is pulling us into this state of heaviness and either anger or sadness, whatever it may be, anything that's not positive. And the second thing we need to do is we need to listen to the voice in our heart. And that's a reassuring voice. It's a voice which says, look, I'm protecting you. You are safe if you stop listening. You have to stop listening to that voice. There is no way around this. You can't continue to listen to that voice of evil, that voice of darkness, that voice of fear, and be safe. You cannot. It's not possible. So it's essentially a case of, what are you going to listen to? What are you going to believe? Because you can only be saved, that means you can only be safe. That's what saved means. It means you're in a place of complete safety. You can only be saved once you stop listening to that voice. Only. You have to stop listening to that voice. You have to stop believing in that voice. Because whatever you believe in, whatever you put your faith in, will take you to your destiny. If you put your faith in the darkness, if you put your faith in the voice of fear, even the voice of opposition and anger and resentment and bitterness, you put your faith in that voice and listen to it and believe it, then there is only one destination. And of course, I know you don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. Nobody wants to go there. But they don't realize that they are choosing that destination by choosing to listen to that voice. Okay? Because that voice only goes to one place. And essentially, as long as you're listening to that voice, you're following it. And that voice will take you to where it wants you to go. So this is why it's vital that you listen to the voice that will take you back into the light. Because as we listen to the voice of love, and we follow that voice, we stay close to that voice. And as it moves, as it takes us closer and closer and closer to the source where it comes from, then our heart gets stronger, our heart is more uplifted, our heart is more full of hope. We feel the truth of its message because it's perceived, we can feel it. It's not just a belief system. We experience the truth of the light, and we realize that everything the light tells us, or everything that God tells us, is actually true. That we are protected, that we are safe, that no harm can come to us, that there is nothing we can't overcome. But we have to listen to that voice and trust it and believe it. So, and that can only occur when we stop listening to the other voice, the voice of fear, which is being fed by the media. It's vital to understand. The media is feeding that voice. It's making it stronger in your mind. And the media has been, oh my goodness, the clever tactics that are being used in the media to convince you of a dark destination, and to listen to that voice would blow your mind. It's the best advice I can give you, to stop listening. Switch it off. Switch off social media. Switch off Netflix for a start. Netflix is some of the messages coming through Netflix are really extremely dark. Switch off Netflix. Switch off social media. Get off YouTube. YouTube again is infiltrating our mind with its agenda. Anyway, I won't go into that because it sounds like a conspiracy theory. Having studied the media for 25 years, I can assure you this is not a conspiracy theory. The media is being harnessed almost as a whole to make us expect certain things to occur. And to get us listening to the media. The media is it wants us to stay engaged with it. And when we turn away from media and we listen to the voice of God in our heart, and we don't need it anymore. So why would those who control the media want us to listen to the voice of truth in our heart? Because it works against their intentions, which is to keep us hooked in to what they're giving us, to keep us feeding from their plate. And really, we will be completely nourished when we listen to that voice, when we turn our attention to that voice in our heart, which tells us not to worry, which tells us that we will be safe if we stop listening to the dark messages. When we do that, our heart will relax. We'll realize there's nothing we need externally. We don't need anything from the world. We just need to reconnect to God, to build and strengthen our connection to God, who gives us everything we need. Everything. You don't even need food. When you're connected to God, you don't even need food. It doesn't mean you have to deny yourself, but it means you're not dependent on the world to give you security, strength and peace. The voice of love, which is God, does that for you. This is why it's vital that God is in our thoughts. It's vital that our mind is on what God says He can do for us, which is why it's very, very important to read the Bible, because the Bible is full of God's promises. The Bible is a book to communicate to us what God can do for us, with stories, parables, metaphors. The Bible's intention is to save us from the destination that voice of evil wants to take us, is to remind us of where we could be going, where we can be heading to if we just listen to the right voice. And so the Bible reminds us of what it is God wants us to know, about who He is and what we need to do, and about how careful we need to be with our choices. We make so many choices on a daily basis, and many of them lead us away from the light. They lead us to depend on the world for our sense of satisfaction. They lead us to depend on the world for our sense of peace, on material circumstances. They turn us away from God, and they lead us to rely on external things which cannot give us what we need. They cannot save us. So it's essentially a case of where are you going to put your attention? What are you going to listen to in here? What are you going to dwell on in here? Because you need to dwell on the light, which means dwell on God. Keep your mind on God. Keep your mind on His promises as laid out in the Bible. And trust God. Trust Him completely. And then there will be peace in your heart. When you stop doubting, because all doubts take you back into the hands of the voice of evil. All doubts take you back into the voice of fear. Doubt and fear are essentially bedfellows. They're two sides of the same coin. Doubt and fear. So when you doubt, that means you're not trusting the voice of love. You're not trusting God. And so we have to eliminate the doubt from our mind if we are to be in complete faith, which means completely safe. Complete faith means completely safe. So when that voice of doubt rises up and tries to say, well, hang on a second, yeah, but what if? What if it's not real? What if I'm just deluding myself? What if? That is the voice of doubt. And when it raises its head, you have to turn away from it. Don't listen to it. You trust in your heart that all you need is your mind upon God. Because when your mind's upon God, then your heart will be with God. When your mind's with God, your heart will be with God. It's that simple. So let God consume your thoughts, rather than the worldly thoughts, things you've seen in the media, things that are happening in the world, things on YouTube, blah, 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 the news, whatever it is. It's all designed to keep your thoughts away from God. And that's where your mind needs to be. Your mind needs to be with God. And so it's really a battle for your attention. When I say a battle, I mean God isn't battling. God is there. Love is there. Truth is there. The only question is, are you going to turn in its direction and put your mind upon it and allow your heart to rest in its presence? Because it's your choice and you have to make that choice. But the consequences of making the right choice are everything your heart's ever dreamed of. Everything. It all comes down to putting your complete faith in the light. Trusting completely that you'll be safe, protected. There is no need to fear. There is no need to be anxious. There is no need to worry about anything. Trust. Trust in the love of God and the light of God and the words of God. Read the words of God. Remind yourself. Let your heart be reminded of the providence and protection He wants to give you and the love He has for you. Okay. Thank you for listening to this video. I wish you well and God bless you.